Welcome to Real Bear Reviews, your paradise for movie lovers. Thank you for supporting our channel. Your love keeps us alive and growing.
In 2018, a peculiar event unfolded in Thailand that garnered attention and support from 17 countries, including China, the United States, Japan, and the United Kingdom. The story began when 12 boys from a soccer team, along with their coach, went to explore the Tam Luang Nong Non Cave, the fourth largest cave in Thailand, also known as the Mermaid's Cave. They entered the cave and then disappeared without a trace. It was not until evening, when the rain poured down, that their families realized something was wrong. The Mermaid's Cave was already known for its annual floods. When the families frantically arrived, all that remained were 13 bicycles scattered about, and the cave entrance had been submerged by the floodwaters. Their calls for the children echoed into the night, but they were met with a terrifying silence. At 1 a.m., a special operations team from the Thai Navy SEALs arrived at the scene, ready to begin the rescue operation. Soon after, the governor was also notified and immediately came to take charge. Fortunately, a foreigner who had lived there for many years provided a map of the cave's internal structure. Although the cave had a complex and narrow structure, there were a few large chambers, which offered a glimmer of hope that the children might still be alive. The SEAL team quickly prepared personnel and equipment and began their first expedition into the cave. They searched for traces of the children while securing ropes to stalactites to support subsequent rescue attempts. At 5 a.m., the team members, despite being well-equipped, came out with injuries. The conditions inside the cave were extremely dangerous. One member nearly lost his life. They had only managed to advance 800 meters out of the cave's total length of 10 kilometers. Faced with unimaginable difficulties and witnessing the miserable state of the rescue team, the boys' families felt like they had fallen into an abyss, and the flame of hope in their hearts was slowly extinguished. On the second day, the situation became more serious, and it was upgraded to an international incident. Local authorities called for help from all over the world, and this call was answered by countless volunteers. Among them was a hydraulic engineer who, while passing by, saw volunteers using pumps to remove water from the cave. Although they were using the most powerful pumps available, he knew from his experience that this effort was like a drop in the ocean. He approached an elderly man in the village, introduced himself, and shared his idea. To solve the water problem in the cave, they had to go to the water source in the mountains. Led by the old man, they found countless openings on the mountain where floodwaters were pouring into the cave. The only way to control the water level inside the cave was to divert the water flow from the mountains to the foot of the mountain. However, there was a difficult problem. If they did that, the rice fields would be flooded, and a whole year's worth of the farmers' hard work would be destroyed. No matter what they chose, it would be heartbreaking. Upon learning this, the governor decided to meet with the farmers directly, hoping to find a glimmer of hope for the children. "We will lose our crops," one farmer asked, "and will doing this really save the children?" "To be honest, I can't guarantee anything," the governor replied, "but it will give them a chance to survive." The farmers briefly discussed it among themselves and quickly made a decision. "We agree," they said, "for the children's sake." By the fifth day, the number of rescue workers from around the world had reached 1,000. Among them were 2 cave diving experts from the British Cave Rescue Council, Rick Stanton and John Volanthen. As soon as they arrived, they did not rest. They immediately put on their gear and rushed to the scene. The arrival of these 2 men changed the entire course of the rescue operation. They went to the third chamber, 800 meters from the cave entrance, where everyone was frantically pumping water out, but the water level kept rising. The situation was extremely urgent. After going a few dozen meters deeper into the cave, a pump broke down due to being overworked. The technical staff were trying to repair it, but this was also the last point where they could surface to breathe. From here, Rick and John put on their fins and dived into the water. The water inside the cave was murky and almost impossible to see through. The dangers underwater were far beyond their imagination. Sharp stalagmites were everywhere and could cut them at any time, which could lead to a serious infection. The terrain was also very narrow, and if they were to get stuck in a crevice, they could lose their lives. The 2 of them followed the guide rope, moving forward with great difficulty. Every meter forward required a lot of effort. After nearly 4 hours, they finally reached the T-junction 1.6 kilometers from the cave entrance. This was the first large chamber where they could escape the floodwaters. They called out loudly for a long time, but there was no sign of the children, so they had to continue their search for the next chamber. But as soon as they set off, the cliff was washed away by the floodwaters. The fierce water flow and strong water pressure immediately put them in a life-or-death situation. Luckily, with their extensive experience, Rick and John managed to escape the danger. However, they knew that the path ahead was even more perilous, and they could not be careless. Exhausted, the 2 of them decided to turn back. The water level was rising at an alarming rate. When they returned to their original diving point, the area was almost completely flooded. A pump repairman was trapped on a rock, unable to move. Rick and John had to share a diving suit with him and take him out first before returning for the others. But cave diving was an extremely difficult challenge for an ordinary person. As soon as he was submerged, the engineer showed abnormal signs. The extreme fear of being trapped in a dark, confined space caused him to slowly lose his mind. He frantically struggled to escape Rick and surface. In his struggles, he accidentally knocked Rick's spare regulator out of his hand. However, as he was surfacing, he hit his head on the cave wall, and a stream of red blood spread across the water. Rick immediately adjusted his equipment, put the regulator back in his mouth, and used all his strength to drag him ashore. They finally survived this crisis. Rick and John reported the complicated underwater situation to the governor, and to prevent casualties, the governor decided to temporarily suspend all rescue operations. The governor warned the 2 not to enter the cave without his permission. At this point, the rescue team had no news of the missing people. The children's families began to lose hope. They only begged the government to bring their children's bodies back intact. In response, the committee held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation in the cave. "Who'll go in?" they asked. "When will they go in?" Everyone agreed that they should wait until the rain stopped and the water was completely pumped out of the cave before making any further plans. But Rick and John had a different opinion. Every minute that passed brought the children closer to death. As experienced cave diving experts with 30 years in the field, only they were qualified for this task. They proposed to start the rescue operation immediately. However, the governor still decided to wait for the rain to stop. After all, no one could be held responsible if foreign volunteers died during the rescue. On the 8th day, the water diversion project made new progress. The first pipeline was installed, and the floodwaters began to be diverted to the foot of the mountain. The rushing water, like a giant army of ants, slowly ate away at the farmers' hard work. Then, on the 9th day, a strange event that no one could explain occurred. Legend has it that 300 years ago, a beautiful princess from the Qi and Hung kingdom fell in love with a horse boy. Because of their different social statuses, their love was forbidden by the king. The two lovers ran away to Chiang Rai, Thailand, and lived in a cave. When the king found out, he was furious and sent 13 assassins to hunt down the couple. While going out to find food, the unfortunate boy was discovered and killed by the assassins. Upon hearing of her lover's death, the heartbroken princess took her hairpin and committed suicide. After her death, her blood turned into a river, her body turned into a mountain, and the cave where they lived became the mysterious Tam Luang Nong Non cave. In this event, the 13 people trapped inside were believed to be the reincarnations of the 13 assassins from the past. Even more miraculously, many Thai people had the same strange dream. They dreamed of the princess who died 300 years ago. The princess asked everyone to find a high-ranking monk named Kruba Bunchuam to meet her, and she would forgive and release the 13 boys. In the dream, the princess said that Kruba Bunchuam was the reincarnation of the horse boy, but no one had ever heard of the name Kruba Bunchuam before. A restaurant owner posted a message on Facebook, hoping to find Kruba Bunchuam. Immediately after, many Thai people commented that they had the same dream. The post went viral, and people actually found the high-ranking monk named Kruba Bunchuam. Even more miraculously, he was initially doing missionary work in Myanmar, but a few days earlier, he had the same dream and immediately set off for Thailand. When people found him, he was already at the Thai border, just as the dream had instructed, and was about to head to the incident scene in Chiang Rai. The next day, Kruba Bunchuam arrived in Chiang Rai. After performing a ceremony in front of the cave, he entered alone. After 2 hours, he slowly walked out. No one knew what had happened inside. After coming out, he told everyone that the divers were about to find the boys. He said that they were all safe and would be reunited with their families in 1 or 2 days. He then performed a ceremony for the princess in front of the cave and drove away. Immediately after he left, the heavy rain in Chiang Rai suddenly stopped and the sky cleared. On the 10th day, the rescue operation was restarted. Rick and John once again took on the mission of going into the cave. It took them 4 hours to reach the T-junction. They attached new ropes to the old ones and continued to explore. Not long after, they arrived at Pattaya Beach, which was believed to be the most likely place for the children to be hiding, but unfortunately, there was still no sign of them. At this point, the two of them began to realize that the 13 people might have died. Okay, I'll search the left side, John said, and see if I can find any bodies. The two of them split up, each going in a different direction, trying to find the bodies of the unfortunate people as quickly as possible. 2 hours later, they reached the 9th chamber, 5 kilometers from the cave entrance. As soon as they surfaced, a strong, foul smell hit their noses. Suddenly, a flashlight beam flashed from a distance and a few thin, haggard figures slowly approached them. And when they finally saw the figures clearly, the two of them were stunned with shock. The 12 children and their coach were all alive. They were all safe. For two experts with 30 years of rescue experience like Rick and John, this was an unbelievable miracle. Aside from their haggard faces from malnutrition, they were all healthy. It turned out that during their time being trapped, the coach had taught the children how to conserve their energy and meditate to calm their fears. The snacks they had were only eaten once a day. Instead of drinking the murky rainwater, they found an underground spring to drink clean water. Thanks to this, they were all able to survive until now. John tried to suppress his emotions and used a camera to record the entire scene. Now we have to go back to the cave entrance immediately and tell the rescue team this good news, he said. After 6 hours, they returned to the cave entrance, but on the way back, after thinking it over, they both calmed down. They told the staff not to announce that the children were still alive for now. But at this moment, everyone had lost their minds from being too happy. The old men found the kids. They shouted. Soon, this news spread like wildfire throughout the rescue site. That evening, the governor came to thank Rick and John for their great contributions. But at this moment, the two of them looked heavy-hearted, because getting the children out would be 100,000 times more difficult than finding them. In other words, it was an impossible mission. The governor affirmed that he would send the most elite SEAL team with the most modern equipment to participate in the rescue, but this idea was quickly rejected by Rick. The problem was not with the divers or the equipment. They had once rescued a pump repairman who was trapped in the cave, and in just a few hundred meters, the fear of being trapped in a dark, confined space had made the adult man who knew how to swim lose his mind. How could they expect these naive children to dive over 2,000 meters underwater to get out? It's ridiculous, he said. We worked so hard to find the kids, and now we have to watch them die. This was unacceptable to everyone involved in the rescue. The SEAL team decided to deliver supplies to the children first. Rick and John also came uninvited. They knew the section of the road after the T-junction was very dangerous, so they came to give important instructions. The most important thing was to save oxygen. Well, be there, they said. Well, be with the children today. 3 SEAL members set off, and after 7.5 hours, they delivered supplies to the 9th chamber, where the children were safely hiding. But according to their measurements, the oxygen concentration in the cave had dropped to below 20, seriously threatening the children's lives. Worse still, when they were about to return, they found that John and Rick's warning was completely accurate. Their reserve oxygen was almost depleted. The amount they had was only enough for one of the 3 to return. This was adding fuel to the fire, as the oxygen in the cave was already very scarce, and it also increased the number of people trapped from 13 to 15. On the 12th day, the families felt like they were on a hot seat, their hearts on fire. Seeing their hopeful eyes, the governor had to make a promise. "I assure you," he said, "the children will return safely." This sentence put a huge responsibility on the man who was supposed to be retired. Faced with the current situation, his mind raced, and he finally came up with an idea, but it was too crazy to say out loud. It wasn't until John realized what his friend was thinking that he spoke. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "It's just a crazy idea," Rick replied. "Tell me," John insisted. "Rick's crazy idea is better than giving up. We have no other choice now. We can find Harry," Rick said. Hearing the name Harry Harris, John immediately guessed Rick's intention and fell silent. On the 14th day, the British Cave Rescue Council sent 2 more divers. They replaced John and Rick and went to the 9th chamber, bringing a large number of supplies to boost the confidence of the trapped people. They also brought letters from their families. Not long after, Harry, the person everyone was waiting for, finally appeared. At this point, Harry didn't know that he would become the key figure in the entire rescue operation. When Rick told him that they needed his special medical skills, Harry was stunned. "I'm an anesthesiologist," he said. "Exactly," Rick replied. Harry shook his head vehemently. He knew that doing this would violate the professional ethics of an anesthesiologist. Furthermore, anesthetizing the children and then taking them out of the cave was no different from killing them. It was a crazy idea, and Harry found it very difficult to make a decision. But the truth was that this was the only way to save them. After all, they would be unlikely to survive if they stayed. On the 15th day, a SEAL member went to deliver diving gear to the children. When he was 1/3 of the way there, his regulator got stuck in a rock, causing a serious oxygen leak. He tried his best to fix it, but he eventually died. This incident put Harry in a difficult position. If the rescue operation did not end soon, not only would the children die, but more innocent people could be sacrificed. But if they used the anesthesia plan, the children would have to dive for more than 5 hours underwater, which meant they would have to be continuously injected with an anesthetic throughout the journey. Not to mention the risks of anesthesia. Even if the oxygen masks were completely sealed, the saliva in their mouths could cause them to choke at any time. The risk of infection from needles and the weight the divers had to carry could turn the rescue operation into a disaster. Even with extreme luck, they could only save 2 or 3 people. Harry did not have the courage to decide the life and death of 13 people in an instant, but Rick said, "If we do nothing, the only thing we'll retrieve are 13 bodies. If they die during the rescue, at least we tried our best." That evening, the rescue team secretly held a meeting. The anesthesia plan was the only way to get the trapped people out. The governor asked about the safety of this plan. Harry looked troubled. "I can't answer that question," he said, "because I've never tried this before, but in theory, it's feasible. If we decide to do it, we have to be prepared for potential casualties." The governor decided to take the risk. He reported the plan to the minister, and after a discussion, they finally decided to secretly carry out the anesthesia plan. "No one must know, not even the children's parents," he said. "Everyone do your best. If we fail, I will take full responsibility." On the 16th day, the rescue operation began. Harry took out a needle and gave one to each diver. They all practiced inserting and removing the needle from a bottle of mineral water to control the force of the injection and prevent the needle from breaking. Harry carefully instructed each diver on the important things to remember when injecting the anesthetic. That night, the rescue operation officially began. They would take the 13 trapped children out of the cave in 3 waves. Amidst the fervent prayers of the people, the divers went into the water one by one. In the 5th chamber, in the middle of the cave, they checked the plan one last time. "Okay," one diver said, "I'll stay here. When the first boy passes this long diving section, I'll swim and report the situation to you. If this doesn't work, we have to know immediately before we take any more children out, but if it does work, we continue. They are the cargo, and we are just the transporters." While the children waited, the divers arrived at the 9th chamber one by one. Hearing that someone was coming to take them out, every child cheered happily. But unexpectedly, a problem occurred even before the rescue operation could begin. The coach chose the 4 lightest children, and the smallest boy, named Trey, was chosen to go first. But the oxygen mask didn't fit his face, so they had to change who went first. Another boy put on the diving gear and swallowed a pill. His hands and feet were then tied with zip ties. The boy was anxious and worried as he approached Harry. Harry gently comforted the boy and then injected the needle into his thigh. "We're here to take you out, okay?" he said. The anesthetic quickly took effect, and the boy slowly became drowsy. After the boy was completely unconscious, Harry carefully put the oxygen mask on his face, making sure it was sealed. After confirming that his breathing was normal, he secured the boy's limbs and followed the guide rope to dive into the water. The first 2-kilometer underwater transport officially began. Because he was so tense, Harry forgot to wait for the signal from Rick at the observation area and quickly injected the second boy with an anesthetic. Did he just inject him? Rick wondered. But once the anesthesia began, there was no turning back. All they could do was continue. Luckily, not long after, Rick surfaced and reported that the first boy was safe. "This worked," he said. However, after leaving the observation area, the first boy showed signs of waking up. The diver in charge immediately stopped and prepared to inject him with more anesthetic, but because he had exerted too much effort, his hands were shaking, causing the needle to fall into the water. Fortunately, he managed to find the needle and successfully injected the boy before he was fully awake. At this moment, the second boy, who was with John, had also reached the observation point. After injecting him with more anesthetic, another problem occurred. "Something's wrong," John said. "He's not breathing." John quickly flipped the boy over, and luckily, he started breathing normally again. "Let's try again," John said. He found that the boy stopped breathing whenever he was submerged but started breathing again when he was brought to the surface. After a few tries, the boy's condition finally stabilized. John felt like he had just been on a roller coaster and almost became the first person to fail. At the same time, The first boy was safely taken out of the cave after 7.5 hours, and his vital signs were all normal. After 16 days, escorted by the rescue team, the boy was finally able to bask in the sunlight again. To avoid causing panic to his family, the boy was secretly put into an ambulance, then transferred to a helicopter and taken to the hospital, watched by tens of thousands of people. It wasn't until late at night that the first 4 boys were safely taken out. Harry, who was bearing the heavy responsibility, did not dare to leave the cave until the doctor announced that all 4 boys were safe. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. They not only created a precedent in the history of rescue, but also created a miracle. Harry's mixed feelings of joy and worry were hard to describe. Watching the helicopters flying overhead, people began to feel a sense of hope. But Rick and John were not smiling because they understood that now that they had saved 4 people, they were heroes. But if even one of the remaining people died, their reputation would be ruined, and they might even be cursed. On the 18th day, the mountain flood diversion continued nonstop. Due to the large volume of water, the number of pipes began to become urgent. The experienced old man simply asked, "Aren't there enough pipes?" And then he got up, chopped bamboo, and split it in half to make more pipes. Thanks to his help, the water diversion project was finally completed. But just then, a low rumble echoed in the sky. Dark clouds gathered. The rainy season was really about to begin. That evening, the rescue team finally found a mask that fit Trey. But at the same time, the torrential rain also came. No one could sleep. They couldn't imagine how difficult the rescue would be tomorrow. On the 18th day, the torrential rain became even more intense. The rice fields had now become a sea of water. The difficulty of the rescue operation had increased to an unprecedented level. Rick announced that if the next actions could not guarantee their own safety, he would withdraw from the rescue operation. When they entered the cave, the water level had risen by about 3 times. This meant that they had to dive a longer distance and also fight against the unpredictable, strong current. The level of danger was immeasurable. Everyone understood the seriousness of the situation. They all looked at Rick, the leader, and the decision of whether to continue was in his hands. "Okay," he said, "it should be fine. We'd better act fast, boys. This is the last and most dangerous rescue." Tonight, they had to give their all to rescue the rest of the people. When they reached the 9th chamber, after several tries, they found that the mask still couldn't fit Trey. But there was no time to find another mask. A diver had to manually modify the mask. Trey was once again replaced. The remaining 3 boys set off one by one. The situation underwater became more and more complicated. The strong current was chaotic, and visibility was much more limited. A young diver named Chris, while pulling the boy in a different direction, accidentally dropped the guide rope. The strong current pulled him farther and farther away. In the end, he lost his direction. Chris had no choice but to try to reach the bottom of the cave and find a suitable anchor point to prevent himself and the boy from being washed away by the current. Fortunately, he found an electrical wire and followed it to the 4th chamber. "Luckily, the boy is fine," he said. But the time between the anesthetic injections was completely messed up. To ensure the boy's safety, Chris had no choice but to stay there and wait for someone to come and rescue him. On the other side, Trey's mask was finally fixed. The boy quickly put on his diving gear and swallowed the pill. After being injected with the anesthetic, Trey finally set off. On the 18th day, Rick, who was the second to set off, found Chris waiting in the 4th chamber. He reassured Chris and told him to stay put and protect the boy while waiting for Harry to come and check if the boy was safe and then follow Harry's instructions. On the other side, all the other divers went into the water one by one. By this time, everyone in the 9th chamber had been evacuated. Not long after, Chris finally waited for Harry. Although he was almost at his breaking point, he still persevered in protecting the boy next to him. After checking, Harry confirmed that the boy had no serious problems, but he also noticed the fear and self-blame in Chris' heart. "Do you need me to take over the rest of the way?" Harry asked. "No need," Chris replied. "I'll do it myself. The U-turn is just ahead." "Okay," Harry said. "Rick said to let me handle everything. I think you've completed the most difficult part. The rest of the way is short. Why don't you let me do it? That way I can also be proud that I was one of the people who participated in the rescue," Harry said. "We have to do what's best for the boy," Rick said. "I really think this is the best way." With his art of words, Harry soothed the guilt in Chris' heart and at the same time came up with the best solution. The rest of the journey was difficult, but in the end, everyone returned safely. The Tam Luang Nong Non Cave rescue operation was a complete success. All 13 trapped people were miraculously saved. At this moment, the joy of saving their countrymen and conquering nature made the rescue participants burst with emotion. They hugged and cheered, tears streaming down their faces. More than 5,000 volunteers from different countries worked together to complete an impossible mission. During the rescue, they forgot about their skin color, nationality, and cultural differences, and they worked together to write a heroic and unforgettable chapter in the history of rescue. Everyone was immersed in the joy of victory, except for Harry, who, after a brief moment of joy, quietly sat down in a corner. Just then, he had received a phone call. His father had passed away. Now, he would never have the chance to see his father again. On the 19th day, the rescue equipment was dismantled one by one. Each volunteer returned to their country and family and went back to living their own quiet lives as ordinary people. All the children received timely treatment, and their health indicators returned to normal. After a short period of rest, they would be reunited with their families and return to their normal lives. In this operation, 2 SEAL members died. One was Simon Kunin, who died from drowning during the rescue. The other one died from a blood infection during the rescue. After the operation ended, the Tam Luang Nong Non Cave was completely flooded for 8 months. The farmers who lost their crops were also adequately compensated by the government. The coach and the 3 stateless boys were granted Thai citizenship by the government. The rescue participants came from 17 countries around the world, with a total of more than 5,000 people. The success of this rescue operation may not have been a miracle, but the great survival instinct of humanity. It is thanks to this instinct that humans have been able to continuously rebuild and progress after countless difficulties and natural disasters over the past 6 million years. And that instinct is the respect and love for life. It may be difficult for us to sacrifice ourselves like the people in the movie, but when we meet people who dare to stand up for the lives and rights of others, please don't be stingy with your praise and applause. Don't let that instinct slowly disappear in the face of indifference and ridicule. The value of a movie lies in its reputation, while the value of a movie review lies in its feelings. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching. What did you think of this movie? Please comment below.